Hi everyone, it's Aga from EurekaCrystalBeads.com and I'm here with a super fun technique video for you today. But before I get started, just a quick reminder to check out the rest of our channel, and if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button and don't forget about the notification bell so you always know when we post new content.
In this video, we're going to be making these lovely dangly earrings with 3mm fire polish beads and using cubic right angle weave. If you want to learn how to do cubic right angle weave as well as the regular right angle weave and the prismatic right angle weave, go check the description for links to tutorials that are in-depth and in detail discussing how to do all of these stitches. In this video, I'm just going to very quickly recap it, but if you want to learn with all of the tips, all of the tricks, go check out the other videos. Now, these earrings are so cool because they are customizable. You can change up basically anything and you will end up with a very cool pair of earrings anyway. Okay, so let's get to the beading board and let me show you how to make them.
You will find a link to a detailed tutorial on how to do cubic right angle weave down in the description, as well as a tutorial for prismatic right angle weave, because you could technically make this with prismatic right angle weave as well. And you will also find a link to regular right angle weave with tips and tricks on how to make perfect right angle weave even with seed beads every time. Now, because right angle weave is a sort of a tube, so it has this hole that goes all the way through it, and because you can sort of bend it a little bit, you can make things like this. You can put a wire through it, just like I did here, and you can create shapes with it. You could create an S shape, you can create a U shape, or you can make a full circle, and for that you won't need a wire at all. But for this one, I've decided to spice it up a little bit and make this half circle and hang it on the ear wire just like this. So, what supplies you're going to need to make this earring? First of all, you're going to need your beads, and I'll be using 3mm fire polish beads. I'm also going to need, which I forgot to put out, some 15-ohs, and I chose this beautiful rose gold color because it really matched my fire polish. Then to do the shape, the U shape, with your cubic right angle weave, you're going to need either a wire. Here I have a 20 gauge wire that I will be using just because I don't have a long enough head pin that you could also use for this, and it will even be better because it is a little bit stiffer than the wire. The wire is very pliable. So if you have a head pin that is bigger than 2 inches, then you're going to be able to do that without the wire. But you're also going to need the head pins or eye pins actually, for something else, for these 2 segments up here. So you're going to need head pins or eye pins as well. In addition to that, I'm going to sew the cubic right angle weave with 6-pound fire line and crystal clear color. 4-pound will be okay as well. And I'll be using a size 11 needle, but size 10 will be okay as well. It's just easier to thread your thread through the size 10. But quick tip, if you can't thread your thread at the first try, you can just flatten the end of the thread with flat nose pliers, and then it will go through the eye of the needle much more easily. Now to open and close the jump ring that I'm also going to need, and the ear wire, of course, because these are earrings, I'm going to use pliers. Here I have flat nose pliers and chain nose pliers, and to make loops I'm going to use round nose pliers, and to cut off all of the wire that I don't need, I'm going to use wire cutters. And I think that's it. Let's start beading. Okay, so for this one you're probably going to need more than half a wingspan of thread, but because this is cubic right angle weave, if you don't cut off your tail thread from the spool, you can always go back and start from the end if you run out of thread. So that's cool, and you can work with any length that you feel comfortable with. And as is typical for cubic right angle weave, you start with 4 beads on your needle, slide them down, go through all of them again. And because I'm hoping that my thread will be enough, I'm gonna go through them again just so they hold together a little bit better and I don't have to weave in that much tail in the end. Alright, the first segment is ready. It's a little square of beads. And as I said in the cubic right angle weave video, I like to think of creating this cubic right angle weave tower as well building a high rise. So this is the floor, this is the ground floor, and I'm going to be building my first wall that also has to have 4 beads in a unit. So I'm missing 3 beads because I have my first one already in here. I go back through the bead that my thread is coming out of, my working thread, just from the different direction. And here I have my first wall. If you put it at a right angle and see where you're coming out of, you can see that this next wall already has 2 beads in it, and I'm just missing 2. I also want to be coming out of the last bead in this wall, which will be this bead. So this is my floor level again. So I go through that floor bead, and now I add my 2 beads for the next wall, and go down the previous wall, the bead in the previous wall that we added. And that's my second wall here. I go through this floor bead in this new wall, as well as the next bead in this floor level. And again, I need 2 beads to close up that wall. So I add 2, go down the bead in the previous wall, through the bead on the floor level, and through the next floor bead. Now you may notice that this last wall, the fourth one, has 3 beads in it already because hello, we've just met our first wall again. So I go up the bead in the first wall, the bead that goes up, and I just need to add 1 more bead. Down the previous wall, through the floor bead. And now in order to add a new cube, a new segment, I need to be coming out of one of the 4 beads that are in the ceiling of this segment or the floor of the next segment, because the ceiling of one segment will be the floor of the next one because they're gonna share it. They're gonna share the 4 beads that are on top of here. Now we're going to additionally start adding our 15-0s and spice it up a little bit, but in a minute. First, we add our first wall in this next level, so I'm adding that. And before I pass through the next bead, the next floor bead, I add a 15-0. And then I pass to the next floor bead. Make sure that it's turned the right way so it pops right into place like this. And I can add my next wall, which is 2 beads down through the bead in the previous wall, forward to through the floor bead. And I'm gonna add a 15-0 again before I pass through the next floor bead. 2 beads again, down through the wall bead, through the floor bead. Make sure that your thread does not go in front of the 15-0, and if it gets kind of sucked inside, you can help it with your needle a little bit. Adding another 15-0 through the next floor bead. And now again, just 1 bead to be added in the last wall on this level. Pass down through the floor bead. And now not only are these 2 beads in the floor of the segment not connected with a thread, they don't have a 15-0 in here. So if you see a gap, add a 15-0. There we go. Now I can go up to start a new segment. And you just go on until you have 10 segments in total. So this is 1 segment, 1 hole, 1 segment, second hole, second segment, and you want 10 of them. Alright, just as I thought, I had to come back and add the two last levels with my tail thread, so do use a full wingspan just in case, or just don't cut off your tail thread from the spool. Anyway, I'm ready to end this end of the right angle weave. I already finished one end here, and now I'll end this one, and you do that by going first through just the beads in the last floor level or at the ceiling of the previous level, and I'm gonna go through all of them twice. And after I do that, I'm going to add a 15 in between them and go through them again. And now I'll just tie a knot, and that will be it for the right angle weave, of course. Okay, let's assemble everything together and make it into an earring. As you can see, this doesn't have much of a bend, just enough to make this kind of half circle. But that's mostly because of the 15s. They kind of block the fire polish from getting any closer together. Anyway, I'm gonna pick up my craft wire, or as I said, you can also just use a very long 2.5-inch headband. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put on my cubic or prismatic right angle weave, because I want to have it on to know the length so that I don't cut off too much of that wire. This is going to be about 2.5 inches, maybe a little less than that, but I just want to cut exactly as much as I need. As you can see, I added an extra bead at the end. This is to kind of block this end and to make it a little bit more pointy and not so sharp. Okay, now I take my round nose pliers and I'm just going to make a circle, a loop at the end of this wire. So I put the end of the wire in between my pliers and roll. Okay, now I press my entire sequence to the loop I just made, and I'm gonna measure about 1/2 inch from the end. I'll take my wire cutters and I'm gonna cut at about 1/2 inch. Remember, you can always cut more. I'm gonna add one more fire polish over here as well. And now I can see that this is going to be a little bit too much, so I just trim it. That I think will be enough for the loop, and I'll try to loop it in the same direction as this one. So I grab it like this and I roll. Oh, that's perfect. That's gonna be very nice. This doesn't have to be perfectly in the same direction. We're going to bend it now and probably will have to align them again in a second. So at this point I can bend it as I want it. You can look at the other earring and bend it just the same. I think this is pretty much enough, maybe even a little bit too much. These two loops are almost aligned. Maybe that right one is a little bit skewed, so I'm going to straighten it all up. We're going to leave this for a second. When we add fire polish on these head pins, I'm going to cut off the head from this one just to have also a piece of wire. And of course, you could use a piece of wire for that. I just wanted this to be a little bit more stiff. Now I'm going to loop the end. One of them. Again, I just roll it just like that. You don't have to turn it or do anything else with it. And now I'll add 6 fire polish beads on this eye pin at this point because it has an eye. I'll cut where I think the loop will end on this side, and I'm gonna roll that loop in the same direction as that first one. Just like that, I'm going to do this for the second time. And now I'm going to pick up one of my kind of canes with fire polish. I'm going to open up one of the loops a tiny little bit and add it on, connecting it with the loop in our beaded segment. I'll close it up. I'm going to do the same for the other one. And I'll make sure that I add them on in the same direction. So if the loop ends like on the back in here, I'm going to add the other one in the same way with the loop facing back in here, closing it up. And now I'll just open up the jump ring, add on our entire earring, and they will have their loops facing the same direction in here as well. So all I need to do is take the jump ring and put both of these on there, and then take my ear wire, and I'm going to mind where the front and the back of the loops is, and put my ear wire on the jump ring so that the backs of the loops are on the back of the earring and on the back of the ear wire. Close up the jump ring, and the earring is ready. Alright guys, that's it for this tutorial. I hope you liked it. All of the materials and beads that I used here today can be found at eurekacrystalbeads.com. I hope you like the earrings. Let us know in the comments if you'll be making yours. Meanwhile, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye!